Hello wrestling fans. Welcome back to the $24 million Pro Wrestlemania studio, and welcome back to the show. Through the use of the Pro Wrestlemania, January 12, 1998 Wrestling Observer newsletter. Mike Tyson Wrestlemania hype begins and much more. By Observer staff. There was a tremendous amount of mainstream media conjecture stemming from the WWF's announcement that they were negotiating for Mike Tyson to be a part of WrestleMania. The appearance of Don King doing a taped interview on the January 5th Raw signifies that there has to be some sort of an agreement between the two sides already reached. Exactly what that entails, and what significance it will play is more of a question, and one with no answers at present. The basic belief is that Tyson is going to wind up as a referee for one of the main events on the March 29th Mania show from the Fleet Center in Boston. However, while exact figures aren't available, Tyson is not doing this at a bargain basement price. WCW, which basically stole the Dennis Rodman idea last year from the WWF, which had planned to use Rodman first as Goldust manager and then to set up the two as a tag team, was interested in Tyson if the deal wasn't solidified. Dr. Harvey Schiller, who oversees WCW operations for Turner, was talking with people at the Georgia Dome about negotiations for Oscar de la Hoya to appear with WCW looking like they were falling through and that the company was interested in trying to get Tyson. However, sources close to the situation claim the price Tyson and King have negotiated with WWF may be out of WCW's league. It is clear that King's interest in doing Mania is to make money with Tyson, who is currently banned from boxing, on a show which in the past has done some tremendous pay-per-view buy rates. With the proliferation of pay-per-view shows, the WrestleMania name has meant less and less, to the point that with no outside celebrity involvement in 1997 and a weak main event when it came to mainstream drawing power, there were 5 other pro wrestling shows that did as many or more buys than the traditional jewel of the wrestling year. Again, to speculate on what Tyson will mean depends a lot on the role he's in and how frequently he'll be used. It is believed that both Tyson and King will make appearances on WWF Raw telecasts, perhaps with Tyson appearing as early as January 19th in Fresno, and certainly just out of curiosity, Tyson's first televised appearances should noticeably help the ratings, but that isn't a guarantee because Rodman's presence on Nitro didn't make a difference in the ratings. From there it depends on storyline and the public and the media's reaction. His appearance will garner tremendous media attention at the beginning, probably more negative than positive, but it will get the WWF name out. WWF is attempting to build this year's WrestleMania around using sullied, soiled and sleazy celebrities, which is a tactic that will only make wrestling's image as a whole even worse than it was, but that's the direction WWF has been going for months to begin with. WCW gained valuable points when it comes to perception through using Rodman, and to a much lesser extent Kevin Green. Reggie White in hindsight really didn't mean a thing, because Green was so enthusiastic in promoting his involvement and putting over pro wrestling. Tyson is the biggest draw in the history of pay-per-view, but that drawing power is to see him in a fight, and not be a referee, or participate in a worked farce of a match. And nobody really knows how much of that major drawing power is still intact after his last match, although no doubt there will be curiosity drawing power and tons of media attention if he's involved as a participant in a match. If the WWF is able to sell the idea to enough of the public that Tyson's match will or might be real, and there is 0% chance King would allow Tyson's drawing power and physical health for his eventual return to boxing to be risked in anything but a 100% controlled environment, even though the WWF would gain an incredible boost for itself, to an extent the entire industry, and turn Ken Shamrock in particular into possibly the biggest star in the entire industry if it could put together a mixed match between the two, it'll mean a lot. Just as a ref. Questionable. You'd think the wrestlers involved in a match he'd ref would get a publicity rub and become stars out of it. And with Tyson's major heel image, King can work with Vince McMahon to put Tyson in a babyface situation to soften his image at least among some people, which might help grease the skids for his return to boxing where the real money is. Hogan's initial mainstream stardom, he was already a super drawing card in pro wrestling but not a name outside pro wrestling, came from the rub-off Mr. T and Cyndi Lauper. However, we all thought Bam Bam Bigelow would become a mainstream star in the Lawrence Taylor angle, and even though the WWF couldn't have done a better angle and Bigelow couldn't have played his role better, the fact is Bigelow didn't achieve the stardom from it that everyone both internally and externally expected. As far as what Tyson's involvement would mean in regard to his reinstatement to boxing, according to Mark Ratner of the Nevada State Athletic Commission, which suspended Tyson from boxing in the wake of the Holyfield fight, they consider Tyson being involved in pro wrestling as being no different from Tyson making an appearance on the Larry King Show or doing a skit on Saturday Night Live. No matter what role he plays, it'll have no impact on his boxing future. Tyson was at one point expected to do Nitro on June 30th from Las Vegas and just do a cameo with an NWO t-shirt as a heavily promoted big surprise. Kurt Hennig and Raven, who both debuted on that show, were the planned teased big surprises that would appear earlier in the show leading to Tyson, after the Evander Holyfield fight. However, due to the fallout from the fight, Turner Broadcasting wanted nothing to do with Tyson, nor likely at that point would Tyson have wanted to still do it. But at that point the Turner higher-ups were leery of being associated with boxing in general. Michael Moorer was at the Vegas Nitro show in the front row, and the higher-ups and Turner ordered no shots of Moorer to air on the wrestling television show. Over the weekend, WCW was in serious negotiations with De La Hoya, the current biggest drawing card on pay-per-view, about doing a referee gig on a pay-per-view show. The idea proposed was for De La Hoya to referee a match with Eddie Guerrero versus Rey Mysterio Jr., to play up a Latin angle, and try to build more of a Latin base to the WCW crowd and give Guerrero and Mysterio Jr. the chance for the media rub, particularly since they'd likely have a spectacular match which could shock people with their athletic ability that would normally be inclined to run the event down. However, De La Hoya's people are carefully controlling his image as the Golden Boy and felt participation in pro wrestling would sully that image, and at this point the deal looks unlikely. All this leads to the situation with Hulk Hogan. According to both the WWF and WCW camps, rumors about a Hogan jump don't appear to be taken seriously by either side. Within wrestling, nobody appears to be reacting as if there is any real strong possibility of it happening, although the rumors are everywhere and both sides will admit there is a very slim possibility based on circumstances totally out of the control of either company. There is truth to the idea that Hogan's proposed television series on TNT based on his recent movie didn't materialize, and that he may be shopping around the idea of doing a TV show. If USA Network were to be interested in picking up the show, it could result in Hogan switching to the wrestling company that's on USA. There doesn't appear to be anything serious going in that direction, to the point either side is preparing itself for the possibility of Hogan being either leaving or coming. Hogan has more potential big money matches on the horizon in WCW than WWF, and pretty much everyone accepts that in WCW is going to be the perennial world champion, since Sting isn't a long-term answer with the belt, trading it with different challengers along the way. In WWF, where house show business is far more important to overall financial health, it's unlikely they would put their title belt on someone who won't work house shows, although never say never when it comes to the chance of getting Hogan back, because he's still the biggest pay-per-view draw in the industry. The idea of creating a 3-hour Monday night block using the Hogan show as a lead-in for Raw sounds interesting on the surface. Except from a television standpoint, it's more questionable. Walker, Texas Ranger is the most popular series on USA, and they aren't likely to tinker with the time slot of their most successful series for a television show which more likely than not will flop. When TNT tried to use Hogan's old television show as a lead-in for Nitro, the ratings were roughly half of what USA does with Walker as a lead-in for Raw. Still, anyone who saw Hogan surgically attach himself to Rodman's hip from everything he learned from 1984 and 85 recognizes that depending on media reaction, Tyson's hip may be the one to attach himself to in 1998. The final matches of the career of Riki Choshu and the retirement announcement by Antonio Inoki drew a sellout 65,000 fans for New Japan's traditional January 4th show at the Tokyo Dome. The show, which sold out well ahead of time, was described as a decent but not great show, featuring several upsets and headlined by Choshu's protege, Kensuke Sasaki, retaining the IWGP Heavyweight title, pinning Keiji Muto in 25-18. It was the second largest crowd in the history of pro wrestling in Japan, behind only the Keiji Muto vs. Nobuhiko Takada match in 1995 and being equal to the Takada vs. Shinya Hashimoto match in 1996. With tickets scaled higher than any New Japan Dome show in history except the Muto-Takada match, it was likely, at least when it comes to yen, the second biggest gate in the history of pro wrestling anywhere in the world. As reported in a front-page newspaper story on December 27, Inoki did announce his retirement with his final match on April 4th at the Tokyo Dome. Nikkei Sports, in its headline story on the morning of the card, started publicizing Inoki's next angle, which is creating his own NWO-type organization within New Japan. And actually the NWO angle was originated with New Japan 15 years ago, with Choshu's Ishigun group feuding with Sekigun for the New Japan office, called the World Martial Arts Organization. As was reported here months ago, Inoki's idea is to form a group of shooters to feud with New Japan, using Yoshiaki Fujiwara, Satoru Sayama, perhaps Naoya Ogawa, or even Nobuhiko Takada. The belief within wrestling is that Inoki will retire as a wrestler but perhaps make comebacks as a martial artist, and that even at the age of 55, this won't be his final match. In Inoki's farewell speech, he said that martial arts have become very popular, and even mentioned the name of Rickson Gracie as helping to popularize it. He talked about wanting to promote martial arts shows in China, Europe, the United States and India, and said that he wanted the fans to decide who his final opponent would be. He did bring up the name Hulk Hogan as a potential final opponent, although that would probably be based on Hogan's willingness to put Inoki over, which Hogan may be more willing to do now than in years past. That brings up the question of WCW timing, because WCW probably wouldn't want its world champion, if Hogan were to have the title in April, do a job in another organization, even though today that means less than ever before. To show how little it means today, WCW had its cruiserweight champion, Ultimo Dragon, lost to New Japan's IWGP Junior Heavyweight Champion, Shinjiro Otani, in the best match on the Dome show. To WCW, it was more important to have multiple title changes on the Nitro in Baltimore coming off the poor show the previous week, full well knowing the result would be its champion was going to Japan and putting over their champion a few days later. There was also a final ceremony for Choshu, 46, who wrestled 5 very short matches, winning 4 of them. Choshu received presents and flowers from his 3 children, from magazines and newspapers, and from longtime wrestling rivals Tatsumi Fujinami and Seiji Sakaguchi, along with Sasaki, and they rang the bell 10 times to commemorate the end of his 24-and-a-half-year pro career. 1. Kendo Kashin Tokumitsu Ishizawa beat Koji Kanemoto in 12:01 with a flying armbar off the top rope. The finish was said to have been spectacular. Kanemoto may have injured his knee during the match, which was said to have been good. 2. Otani retained the IWGP Junior Heavyweight title, pinning Dragon, Yoshihiro Asai, in 17:06 after 2 Dragon suplexes. From all reports, this was said to have been the best match on the show. 3. Yuji Nagata upset Hiroyoshi Tenzan, Kwang Kill Choi, 11:33 using the Nagata lock for the submission after Tenzan missed a headbutt off the top rope and Nagata hit him with 2, and Zuigiri. This was a one-shot deal for Nagata, but in beating Tenzan, it's supposed to signal to Japanese fans that when he returns full-time, scheduled to be this summer, that he'll now be a top star. Match itself was said to have been disappointing. 4. Tatsumi Fujinami and Osamu Nishimura beat Satoshi Kojima and Manabu Nakanishi in 12:39 when Nishimura pinned Kojima using a Northern Lights suplex. The story in this match was the same as the previous bout. Trying to get over that, Nishimura is now a star, scoring a pin on Kojima, who is one of New Japan's hottest young wrestlers. Nishimura came to the ring wearing an NWO t-shirt, but during the match they didn't tease any problems between him and Fujinami. Nishimura, who is being groomed for an IWGP heavyweight title match in February in Sapporo, didn't get over even though he's being given the push, and it was said to have been a bad match. After the match, Fujinami issued a challenge to Jumbo Tsuruta. I think we're a few years late on that match. 5. Riki Choshu, Mitsuo Yoshida, pinned Kazuyuki Fujita in 3:57 after a back suplex and a lariat. 6. Choshu pinned Yutaka Yoshi in 1:42 after a lariat. 7. Choshu pinned Tatsuhito Takaiwa in 1:21 using a lariat and using the Scorpion Deathlock for the submission. It was a real waste for Takaiwa to do such a short match, and he didn't do any of his trademark moves. 8. Takashi Iizuka, Takayuki Iizuka, made Choshu submit to the Akira Sengatame heel hook in 2:02 upon reversing the Scorpion. After the match, Iizuka said that he was happy to beat Choshu but said that it was because Choshu was tired. 9. Choshu pinned Jushin Liger, Keiichi Yamada, in 5:09 of the final match of his career. Liger jumped Choshu early using a Kopo kick and a Northern Lights bomb. Liger also used a superplex off the top for a near fall. Choshu actually delivered a plancha, his first one of those in years. In the ring, Liger used a dragon screw in figure 4, but Choshu escaped. Choshu hit the lariat for a near fall and got a pin with the second lariat. The basic feeling on the 5-match series is that it was a disappointment because of how short all the matches went, but that it had superheat. 10. Don Frye upset Naoya Ogawa in 8:47, which shows how much New Japan is happy with Frye, since the original plan was if everything went perfect, Frye would be pushed until the Dome show where he'd put Ogawa over. Now Frye's first big job looks to be when he and Ogawa are rematched on the 2:15 Budokan Hall main event. Frye was heavily booed coming out, managed by Brad Rheingans, and holding his 2 title belts from winning the UFC tournament and the Ultimate tournament. Ogawa dominated early using lots of judo whips and takedowns. Frye got a choke from behind but refused to break the hold on the ropes, which caused heavy booing. Ogawa made another comeback, but Frye cut him off, delivering a low blow and then putting him in a choke sleeper. With Ogawa not moving, the ref stopped the match and awarded it to Frye. After the match, Ogawa went crazy attacking the ref, saying that he never submitted to the move and challenging Fry to a rematch. The work was said to have been decent considering both are rookies, but it had real good heat. 11. Shinya Hashimoto beat Dennis Lane, a no-name kickboxer who appeared on a K1 card a few years ago. This match was a disaster. At 134, Hashimoto tackled Lane, whose leg or knee went out, and he said he was injured and basically quit, which wasn't the planned finish. Fans booed this heavily. 12. Masahiro Chono pinned Shiro Koshinaka in 15:05 after a Yakuza kick in Koshinaka's first match back to knee surgery. Said to have been a good match. 13. Sasaki pinned Muto in 25:18 after 2 Northern Lights bombs. The last 5 minutes were said to have been real good, but in the early portion, Muto was said to have worked a shortcut Hogan-style heel match. Once Muto got going, he did all his fast moves and made the match. After the show, Sasaki talked about having beaten Hashimoto to win the title on August 31st, and then both Chono and Muto in title defenses, who are the 3 biggest stars in New Japan. He said it was time for younger wrestlers to get title shots. Most of the top matches on the show aired as part of a 2-hour World Pro Wrestling special on tape delay later that evening. World Championship Wrestling once again set another company attendance record, drawing 23,058 paid, 26,773 total, and $510,610 to its January 5th Nitro taping at the Georgia Dome in Atlanta. Several times during the broadcast, announcer Tony Schiavone, using his Monsunian double major, broadcasting and exaggerated crowd estimates, referred to the crowd as being 30,000. The gate figure was the second highest in company history, trailing only Starrcade 8 days earlier. The paid attendance broke the Starrcade record by about 7,000 tickets, and building total broke the record set on June 9th in Boston of 18,003 in the building. The company also set its merchandise record on the show, although we don't have the figure. It was an uneventful television show except for a tremendous confrontation with Ric Flair and Bret Hart to build up their pay-per-view main event on January 24th, and a teased NWO split, designed more to build ratings for the debut of Thunder on January 8th. After the show went off the air, there was an impromptu tag team match with Sting and Lex Luger versus Hulk Hogan and Randy Savage, which ended with Sting having Hogan in the Scorpion and Luger having Savage in the rack for a double submission finish. The match was said to have been crummy, but it sent everyone home happy, as there was some disappointment noticeable in the crowd when Michael Buffer came in the ring and Luger and Savage went out for what appeared to be the main event due to the lack of interesting antics underneath. The only matches known at press time for the 124 sold-out pay-per-view from Dayton are Flair vs. Hart, Larry Zbyszko vs. Scott Hall, Luger vs. Savage, and the Giant vs. Kevin Nash, and one would presume a cruiserweight title defense by Juventud Guerrera, who was scheduled to win the belt on the first Thunder taping from Ultimo Dragon. Due to New Year's, ratings for any of the weekend television shows weren't available at press time. Riki Choshu. Career title history. Source: Wrestling Title History's 3rd edition, Wrestling Observer Newsletter, Encyclopedia of American Wrestling. Amateur career highlights: as Mitsuo Yoshida 1971, All Japan Freestyle Champion, 220-pound weight division 1971, Japanese Collegiate Freestyle Champion, 220-pound weight division 1971, United States Greco-Roman Championship 2nd place, 198-pound division 1972, represented South Korea in Olympic Games, 220-pound weight division NWF/NWA North American Tag Team, with Seiji Sakaguchi Def. Hiro Matsuda and Masa Saito June 15, 1979 Los Angeles. Titles abandoned March 1981 when New Japan dropped all existing championships. Uwa Heavyweight Def. Connect July 23, 1982 Now Kalpan. Lost to Connect September 26, 1982 Now Kalpan. Uwa Tag Team, with Gran Hamada Def. Connect and Babeface August 1, 1982 Now Kalpan. Title vacated when Choshu returned to Japan in October. WWF International Heavyweight Def. Tatsumi Fujinami April 3, 1983 Tokyo. Lost to Fujinami August 4, 1983 Tokyo. PWF Heavyweight Title Def. Stan Hansen April 5, 1986 Yokohama. Vacated title in March 1987 when jumping from All Japan to New Japan. NWA International Tag Team, with Yoshiaki Yatsu Def. Jumbo Tsuruta and Genichiro Tenryu February 5, 1986 Sapporo. Lost to Tsuruta and Tenryu February 5, 1987 in Sapporo. IWGP Heavyweight Def. Salman Hashimov, July 12, 1989, Osaka, lost to Big Van Vader, August 10, 1989, Tokyo, Def. Vader, August 19, 1990, Tokyo, lost to Tatsumi Fujinami, December 26, 1990, Hamamatsu, Def. Fujinami, January 4, 1992, Tokyo, lost to Great Muta, August 16, 1992, Fukuoka. IWGP Tag Team, with Masa Saito, Def. Tatsumi Fujinami and Kengo Kimura, June 10, 1988, Hiroshima, lost to Super Strong Machine, Junji Hirata, and George Takano, March 19, 1989, Yokohama, with Takayuki Iizuka, Def. Machine and Takano, July 13, 1989, Tokyo, lost to Masa Saito and Shinya Hashimoto, September 20, 1989, Osaka, with Kensuke Sasaki, Def. Fujinami and Kimura, April 12, 1997, Tokyo, lost to Satoshi Kojima and Manabu Nakanishi, May 3, 1997, Osaka. Super Grade Tag Team Tournament 1992, with Shinya Hashimoto, Def. Hiroshi Hase and Kensuke Sasaki in finals, October 21, Hamamatsu. G1 Climax Tournament 1996, Def. Masahiro Chono in finals, August 3, Tokyo. New Japan Greatest 18 Club World Martial Arts Championship, chosen as champion by Antonio Inoki, 1990, lost to Great Muta, August 16, 1992, Fukuoka. Observer Awards 1987, Wrestler of the Year. A few updates regarding Kevin Nash, Hunter Hearst Helmsley, and Eric Bischoff. As mentioned last week, there was surprisingly little concern by either the wrestlers or management in either WWF, where he has some friends, or WCW regarding Kevin Nash's health, with the belief being virtually universal that he may have had been stressed out, and sources close to him say he was in the hospital on December 25th. But that he had made no bones to anyone that he didn't want to work a program with the Giant, and it's felt the latter more than the former is why he wasn't there. Nash had been scheduled against Giant originally on every pay-per-view starting with Halloween Havoc in November. He missed that one due to undergoing knee surgery at a time when he did have a legitimate knee injury, but whether he truly needed surgery was questioned. He missed World War III, except doing the End of Battle Royal cameo, because he got the singles match cancelled after it had already been advertised. And he missed Starrcade. Nash returned to WCW on January 5th, but the extent of his involvement in the show was walking from a limo with a glare into the building, and showing up at the end of the show to clothesline Randy Savage and argue to Hulk Hogan. He told everyone that he was feeling fine. He apparently agreed to work the 124 pay-per-view show against Giant, although it was never mentioned on the television show. There is no question Hunter Hearst Helmsley suffered a legitimate knee injury working with Dude Love in Hamilton, ONT, on December 28th, the day before he was scheduled to drop the European title to Owen Hart. He showed up and his knee was clearly dislocated and badly swollen, and he's been out of action ever since. The diagnosis was a detached patella and a partially torn meniscus. He was scheduled for an examination with Dr. Jim Andrews and an MRI on January 6th to determine the full extent of damage. At press time, and this could change depending upon the results of the MRI, they were booking under the impression Helmsley would be out of action until the Royal Rumble, the biggest house show of the weekend for WWF, on January 4th in San Antonio before a sellout at the Freeman Coliseum, was scheduled as Undertaker and Steve Austin versus Helmsley and Michaels. It was changed to Undertaker and Austin beating The Rock and D. LeBron and Michaels pinning Owen Hart to retain the WWF title. In other Corpus Christi and Austin, Texas, Undertaker, Austin, and Michaels didn't wrestle, so the main events were Hart and Ken Shamrock beating The Rock and Brown. We have no word on what the situation will be for the house shows over the next 2 weekends in which Helmsley was scheduled to headline. The 1/10th Madison Square Garden show was scheduled to be headlined by Undertaker and Austin versus Michaels and Helmsley in a cage match, and the belief at press time, although not official, was that Undertaker and LOD would face Michaels and New Age Outlaws in a cage, and that Austin and one of Mick Foley's personalities would face Rock and Brown, and they would add a Jeff Jarrett title defense to the undercard. As for the other major shows, in particular Pittsburgh, Anaheim, Las Vegas, before the Rumble in San Jose, we don't have official word other than they would ask Michaels to wrestle in some of the cities he wasn't booked to take Helmsley's place, and they would try and add some stars to the undercard, and obviously the announced lineups would have to be changed. Bischoff was also said at various times to have suffered a blown-out knee, a broken kneecap, or even a broken bone in his leg in training for the match with Larry Zbyszko. He has been on television showing no sign of a limp every week. On the January 5th Nitro, after doing an interview, he jumped off the apron in a manner that someone with a bad knee, let alone a broken bone, would never do. Since we aren't doing a double issue, the material we usually put in the double issue is going to be broken up into 3 issues. This week we are going to run down the major shows of 1997. Next week will be the awards issue. And the following week will be the rundown of title histories for 1997 in the major offices. The most interesting thing to note when it comes to big shows from 1997 is that when it comes to traditional pro wrestling, out of 27 pay-per-view shows from WWF, WCW and ECW, only 9 of them were any good and none since September. During a period when competition should elevate the product, it is when it comes to less wrestling and more angles on television, but when it comes to the pay-per-view and house shows, that hasn't been the case. Now more than at any time in the past, house shows are something that the stars try and get out of doing, and all but the youngest, hungriest, or a few dedicated types use them to largely go through the motions, knowing having there is no emphasis from the company and having good or bad matches doesn't affect your stock because the fans don't remember because cities are run so infrequently, and the promoters don't care at all. Both WWF and WCW only had 4 good shows out of 12 pay-per-view shows based on readers' reaction, and if you look back at these shows, it isn't a case of so much product making standards too high for reader satisfaction. If anything, based on the shows and poll results and comparisons to prior years, standards in some ways are easier than ever. Before 1997 started, we figured the competition would result in better shows and better matches, and really, the opposite was the case, even though 1997, from a newsworthy standard of strange out-of-the-ring occurrences, was the most interesting year probably in the history of the business. In 1996, WWF put on 9 good pay-per-view shows out of 12, while WCW put on 4 out of 10 based on reader responses, and for whatever reason, my opinion is that as a general rule of thumb people judge WWF on easier standards because equally bad WWF and WCW shows will often get thumbs in the middles on WWF and thumbs downs on WCW. ECW, which is often judged by the easiest standard of all because it caters more to hardcore fans, still only managed to put on 1 good pay-per-view show out of 3. From a business standpoint, WCW's business across the board showed huge increases. We'll deal with attendance, a gigantic increase, and television ratings in future issues. Actually, television ratings did not improve much if at all, as for every new viewer on Monday, with Nitro averaging a 3.2 in 1996 and a 3.7 in 1997. There was an equal and possibly greater corresponding loss of viewers over the weekend for the product, as the weekend ratings on TBS have never been lower, but the company showed a huge increase in both buys and revenue. WWF, on the other hand, while having a strong year at the gate, it improved its television ratings, but that was on the strength of increasing the weekend numbers. Raw averaged a 2.7 in 1996 and a 2.7 in 1997, decreased over the course of the year when it came to pay-per-view buys. But due to increasing the price of the B shows from $19.95 to $29.95, it showed a sizable revenue increase overall, which was probably the key factor in putting the company on its most solid financial footing in several years. Any predictions for 1998 are foolish. All we can say for sure is that it will be another year of change. The key issues at the beginning of the year are WCW's Thursday television show, WWF's usage of Mike Tyson, the ensuing media publicity, both good and bad, that will result from it, how far the companies can push the envelope without even more serious fan problems resulting, a lack of discipline that has resulted in an environment where titles will less and less be won and lost in the ring, and clean victories in main events will be something reserved for Japan and Mexico. 1997 record book. The biggest shows of the year. Domestic pay-per-view events. WWF Royal Rumble, January 19th, San Antonio Alamodome. Attendance 60,525, 48,014 paid live gate, $480,013. Estimate buy rate / revenue, 0. July $2.18 million. Thumbs up / down / middle, 100, 42.4%, 92, 39.0%, 44, 18.6%. Best match, Royal Rumble 70, Shawn Michaels vs. 45. Worst match, Kanek and Hector Garza and Pero Aguayo vs. Heavy Metal and Jerry Estrada and Fuerza Guerrera 66, Undertaker vs. Vader 29. Highlights, Shawn Michaels regained the WWF title for a second time, pinning Psycho Sid in 1349 in his hometown, 2 stars. Steve Austin, who had actually been eliminated behind both refs back, got back in the ring and threw out Bret Hart in 50-29 to win the annual Royal Rumble, 3 stars. An attempt to forge an alliance with AAA in Mexico, which wound up being short-lived, saw a six-man match with Hector Garza and Pero Aguayo and Connect beating Jerry Estrada and Heavy Metal and Fuerza Guerrera in a match that didn't get over live. 1 star. Vader pinned Undertaker in 13-19 due to outside help from Paul Bearer. 1 1/4 stars. Hunter Hearst Helmsley retained the IC title pinning Goldust in 1650. 2 stars. WCW NWO sold out, January 25th, Cedar Rapids 5 Seasons Center. Attendance, 5,120. Sellout. Live gate, $68,209. Estimate buy rate / revenue, 0.47 / $1.37 million. Thumbs up / down / middle, 4, 1.4%, 276, 97.2%, 4, 1.4% best match, 6 versus Eddie Guerrero 157, Chris Jericho versus Masahiro Chono 21. Worst match, Hulk Hogan versus The Giant 141, Big Bubba versus Hugh Morris 8. Highlights, generally considered as among the worst pay-per-view events of all time. Main event saw WCW champion Hulk Hogan and The Giant go to a non-decision in 11 minutes. When this match took place, it was considered almost a given to win worst match of the year, but the year some incredibly bad major matches, -1/2 star. Eddie Guerrero retained the U.S. title beating 6 in 1348, 4 stars. Steiner supposedly won the WCW tag titles from Scott Hall and Kevin Nash in 1443 when ref Randy Anderson came out of the stands. 10th fall after Nick Patrick was bumped. The decision was reversed on television the next day, 2 1/4 stars. Between the beauty contest and the announcing, it more than made up in infamy for the fact that a lot of shows, including this year, have actually presented worse wrestling. UFC 12, Judgment Day, February 7th, Dothan Civic Center. Attendance 3,100. Sellout. Live gate, $0. Estimate buy rate / revenue, 0.55 / $896,000. Thumbs up / down / middle, 132, 88.0%, 85.3%, and 6.7% best match, Yoshiki Takahashi vs. Valid Ismail 101, Mark Coleman vs. Dan Severn 7. Worst match, Jerry Bollander vs. Nick Sanzo 72, Mark Coleman vs. Dan Severn 8. Highlights, after a move literally the day before after losing a court fight when the New York State Athletic Commission, spurred on by a series of negative articles in the New York Times, decided to rewrite the rule book as a legal technicality to force UFC out of the state when a law passed specifically legalizing the event. The event moved to Dothan, Alabama, where all the tickets were given away because of such a last-minute deal. The show was headlined by Mark Coleman capturing the UFC heavyweight title from Dan Severn with a headlock choke in 2:59, and the UFC debut of 19-year-old Brazilian Vitor Belfort, who captured the heavyweight tournament. Jerry Bollander won the UFC's first ever under 200 pounds tournament. WWF Final 4, February 16th, Chattanooga UTC Arena. Attendance 6,399. Live gate, $76,762. Estimate buy rate / revenue, 0.May $1.04 million. Thumbs up / down / middle, 123, 70.7%, 11.6.3%, 40, 23.0% best match, Final 4 132. Worst match, Farouk and Crush and Savio Vega vs. Flash Funk and Goldust and Bart Gunn 83, Rocky Maivia vs. Hunter Hearst Helmsley 17. Highlights, Bret Hart captured the WWF title for the 4th time, winning a Final 4 match for the title vacated 3 days earlier by Shawn Michaels in 24:05 over Steve Austin. Vader and Undertaker when Undertaker was distracted by the eliminated Austin, allowing Hart to cradle him from behind in an excellent headliner. 4 1/4 stars. Owen Hart and Davey Boy Smith retained the WWF tag titles, losing via DQ against Phil LaFon and Doug Furnas in 10:30, 3 1/4 stars. Rocky Maivia retained the IC title pinning Hunter Hearst Helmsley in 12:39, 1 3/4 stars. WCW Super Brawl, February 23rd, San Francisco Cow Palace. Attendance 13,324. Sellout, 12,145. Paid live gate, $192,000. Estimate buy rate / revenue, 0.75 / $2.20 million. Thumbs up / down / middle, 151, 84.8%, 10, 5.6%, 17, 9.6%. Best match, Conan and La Parka and Villano 4 vs Juventud Guerrera and Ciclope and Super Colo 61, Dean Malenko vs 635. Worst match, Hulk Hogan vs Roddy Piper 87, Harlem Heat vs Faces of Fear vs Public Enemy 34. Highlights: Hulk Hogan retained the WCW title beating Roddy Piper in 10:52 due to outside interference from Randy Savage, 1 1/4 stars. The Giant and Lex Luger beat Scott Hall and Kevin Nash in another apparent tag team title change that was overruled the next day in 8:53. Luger was injured as an angle and, although advertised, was not allowed to participate, so Giant went at it alone. Luger then showed up, tagged in, and racked Nash for the win, but it was overruled since Luger wasn't medically allowed to be there, 3 1/2 stars. Eddie Guerrero retained the U.S. title beating Chris Jericho, 3 1/4 stars. Prince Iaukea retained the WCW TV title pinning Rey Mysterio Jr., 3 1/4 stars. 6 won the WCW Cruiserweight title from Dean Malenko in 11:57 due to distraction in the finish from Guerrero, 3 1/4 stars. WCW Uncensored, March 16, North Charleston Coliseum. Attendance 9,295, 7,640. Paid live gate, $101,184. Estimate buy rate / revenue, 0.89 / $2.61 million. Thumbs up / down / middle, 87, 39.7%, 95, 43.4%, 37, 16.9%. Best match, Dean Malenko vs Eddie Guerrero 114, Harlem Heat vs Public Enemy 32. Worst match, 3-team elimination match 97, Glacier vs Mortis 38. Highlights: a triangle match, which appeared to be booked on acid, saw Team NWO of Kevin Nash, Scott Hall, Randy Savage and Hulk Hogan beat Team Piper, Chris Benoit and Piper and Jeff Jarrett and Steve McMichael, and Team WCW, the Giant and Lex Luger and Scott Steiner, as they took Rick Steiner out of the picture with an angle earlier in the show. In 1922 when it came down to Hogan and Luger, but Savage interfered, causing Luger to get pinned. After the match, Dennis Rodman, who was actually the focal point of the match to the point Hogan was surgically attached to his hip for photo ops from all the media, ended up spray-painted NWO on Luger's back, 1 star. As became the WCW pattern throughout the year, the poor main event was backed by a strong undercard as Dean Malenko won the U.S. title from Eddie Guerrero in 1914, 3 3/4 stars. Ultimo Dragon pinned Psychosis in 13:17, 3 1/2 stars. Harlem Heat beat Public Enemy in a tornado match, 2 1/2 stars. And a disappointing match where Prince Iaukea retained the TV title beating Rey Mysterio Jr. in 13:41, 1 1/2 star. WWF WrestleMania, March 23, Chicago Rosemont Horizon. Attendance 18,197. Sellout 16,467. Paid live gate, $837,150. Estimate buy rate / revenue, 0.77 / $2.46 million. Thumbs up / down / middle, 206, 78.9%, 38, 14.6%, 14, 6.5%. Best match, Bret Hart vs Steve Austin 253. Worst match, 4 corners tag match 84, Rocky Maivia vs Sultan 63. Highlights: one of probably the 2 or 3 greatest matches in the history of WrestleMania was the Bret Hart win over Steve Austin in an I Quit match with Ken Shamrock as ref in 22:05. The win also featured a double turn, Hart into a heel and Austin into a babyface, the latter becoming arguably the hottest star in the business for the remainder of the year and inarguably the biggest merchandise seller. Hart won, but Austin never submitted, 5 stars. Hart-Austin shared double co-billing with the WWF title match where Undertaker won the title from Psycho Sid in 21:19, 1 1/4 stars. In a street fight, Legion of Doom and Ahmed Johnson beat Farouk and Crush and Savio Vega in 10:45, 3 1/2 stars. Owen Hart and Davey Boy Smith retained the WWF tag titles going to a double countout with Vader and Mankind in 16:08, 2 1/2 stars. And Rocky Maivia pinned Sultan in 9:45 to retain the IC title, 1 1/4 stars. Extreme Fighting Championships 4, March 28, Des Moines Veterans Memorial Auditorium. Attendance 750. Live gate. Estimate buy rate / revenue, 0. December $172,000. Thumbs up / down / middle, 101, 98.1% to 1.9%, 0.0% best match, Kevin Jackson vs. John LeBay 39, Kenny Monday vs. John Lewis 32. Worst match, Gary Myers vs. Tom Glanville 68. Highlights arguably the single best NHB show to date, but for financial reasons the end of the EFC promotion which folded a few weeks later. The highlights were the NHB debuts of two gold medal winning Olympic wrestlers, Kevin Jackson, 1992 gold at 181 pounds, and Kenny Monday, 1988 gold at 163. Jackson beat John LeBay in 1/12 of the second round via submission, while Monday knocked out John Lewis at 4:09. In the main event, Maurice Smith retained his EFC title beating Murakami Kazunari in 4:20 with the single most devastating knockout punch in American NHB history. WCW Spring Stampede, April 6, Tupelo Coliseum. Attendance, 8,356 sellout, 7,428 paid live gate, $107,115. Estimate buy rate / revenue, 0.58 / $1.75 million. Thumbs up / down / middle 10, 6.5%, 89, 57.8%, 55, 35.7% best match, Ultimo Dragon vs. Rey Mysterio Jr. 93, Diamond Dallas Page vs. Randy Savage 31. Worst match, Public Enemy vs. Jarrett and McMichael 57, Four Corners match 30. Highlights: another poor WCW pay-per-view, this time without the booking problems of the past, but also sans the good undercard wrestling for the most part. The pre-show hype built the card around a Four Corners match with Lex Luger, the Giant in Harlem Heat, where Giant basically gave Luger the win to earn a future WCW title shot in 1818. 1 star, although the final position was given to Diamond Dallas Page's lift into superstardom when Randy Savage put him over in 15:38 of a no DQ match. 3.25 stars. Dean Malenko retained the U.S. title going to a no contest with Chris Benoit in a match played with far too many run-ins. 3.25 stars. Prince Iaukea retained the TV title beating Steven Regal in 10:01. 1.5 star, and one excellent opening match with Rey Mysterio Jr. beating Ultimo Dragon in 14:55. 4.25 stars. ECW Barely Legal, April 13, Philadelphia ECW Arena. Attendance, 1,170 sellout. Live gate, $66,000. Estimate buy rate / revenue, 0.26 / $400,000. Thumbs up / down / middle, 283, 82.5%, 29, 8.5%, 31, 9.0% best match, Great Sasuke and Gran Hamada and Masato Yakashiji vs. Men's Teo, and Dick Togo and Takamichi Inoku 208 Terry Funk vs. Stevie Richards vs. Sandman 51. Worst match, Shane Douglas vs. Pitbull No. 2 195, Eliminators vs. Dudleys 21. Highlights: the long-awaited debut of ECW on pay-per-view was built around the first singles match between Sabu and Taz, and Terry Funk's quest to win the ECW title just before his 53rd birthday. Funk won a triangle match over Sandman and Stevie Richards, 4 stars, to earn his title shot where he beat Raven due to Tommy Dreamer's interference in 7:20, 3.25 stars. Taz beat Sabu in their first meeting doing the same double turn as in the Bret Hart-Steve Austin match in 17:49, 3.25 stars. Shane Douglas retained the TV title beating Pitbull No. 2 in 2043, 3/4 star. Eliminators regained the tag titles beating the Dudleys in 6:11, 2.75 stars, and in one of the best U.S. matches of the year, Great Sasuke, who had just worked the previous night against Jushin Liger at the Tokyo Dome, and Gran Hamada and Masato Yakashiji beat Dick Togo and Men's Teo and Takamichi Inoku in 16:55, 4.5 stars. WWF Taker's Revenge, April 20, Rochester War Memorial Auditorium. Attendance 6,477 sellout. Live gate, $87,414. Estimate buy rate / revenue, 0.May $1.08 million. Thumbs up / down / middle, 61, 36.5%, 81, 48.5%, 25, 15.0% Best Match, Bret Hart vs. Steve Austin 75, Undertaker vs. Mankind 56. Worst Match, Jesse James vs. Rockabilly 94, Owen Hart and Davey Boy Smith vs. Legion of Doom 14. Highlights: largely a forgettable show with 2 good main events, a nothing undercard, and 3 DQ finishes in 5 matches. Steve Austin beat Bret Hart via DQ in 21:09 3 3/4 stars in the main event, while Undertaker pinned Mankind in 17:26 to retain the WWF title, 3 3/4 stars. Savio Vega beat Rocky Maivia via countout, so Maivia kept the IC title in 8:33 3/4 of a star, and Legion of Doom beat tag champs Owen Hart and Davey Boy Smith via DQ in 10:11 3/4 of a star. WWF Cold Day in Hell, May 11th, Richmond Coliseum. Attendance 9,381, sellout 7,681, paid live gate $116,547. Estimate buy rate / revenue 0.57 / $1.27 million. Thumbs up / down / middle 33, 23.4%, 70, 49.6%, 38, 27.0%. Best match, Ken Shamrock vs. Vader 81, Undertaker vs. Steve Austin 46. Worst match, Ahmed Johnson vs. Nation of Domination 34, Jesse James vs. Rockabilly 27. Highlights: described as just another Sunday afternoon pay-per-view show that would be forgotten in a week. Undertaker pinned Steve Austin in 2006 to retain the WWF title using the Tombstone after some distraction from Brian Pillman. 3 stars. Even more noteworthy on the show was the WWF in-ring debut of Ken Shamrock, who beat Vader with an ankle lock in 13:21 3 1/4 stars. WCW Slamboree, May 18th, Charlotte Independence Arena. Attendance 9,643, sellout. Live gate $167,705. Estimate buy rate / revenue 0.60 / $1.88 million. Thumbs up / down / middle 112, 77.8%, 12, 8.3%, 20, 13.9%. Best match, Steve Regal vs. Ultimo Dragon 66, Roddy Piper and Ric Flair and Kevin Green vs. Scott Hall and Kevin Nash and 650. Worst match, Steve McMichael vs. Reggie White 78, Glacier vs. Mortis 26. Highlights: the return of Ric Flair to the ring after being out of action for 8 months after rotator cuff surgery ended up with him teaming with Roddy Piper and local football hero Kevin Green to beat Scott Hall and Kevin Nash in 6 in a match that had more controversy before it took place because of Hulk Hogan's not doing the match and 6 being in the main event. Officially, Hall did the job via pin to Flair's figure 4 while Piper had Nash in the sleeper and Green had powerslammed 6 to give the fans a happy ending in a match that had great heat and emotion. Overwhelming. So-so wrestling, 2.5 stars. Future NFL Hall of Famer Reggie White made his pro wrestling debut, and unlike people like Green and Lawrence Taylor, White was a total embarrassment, being in one of the worst matches of the year, losing to Steve McMichael in 15-17, -2 stars. In title matches, Steve Regal regained the WCW TV title from Ultimo Dragon in 1604, 3 3/4 stars, and Dean Malenko retained the U.S. title, beating Jeff Jarrett due to outside interference from McMichael in 1503, 3 stars. UFC Ultimate Force, May 30th, Augusta Richmond County Civic Center. Attendance 5,100, 4,100, paid live gate. Estimate buy rate / revenue 0.50 / $897,000. Thumbs up / down / middle 124, 96.1%, 4, 3.1%, 1, 0.8%. Best match, Tank Abbott vs. Vitor Belfort 48, Ensign Inoue vs. Royce Alger 38. Worst match, Tito Ortiz vs. Wesley Alberton 14, Tony Halme vs. Randy Couture 13. Highlights: the myth of Tank Abbott fell to the reality of Vitor Belfort in just 53 seconds of the main event. U.S. National Greco-Roman champion Randy Couture debuted in NHB, beating pro wrestler Tony Halme and Stephen Graham to capture the heavyweight tournament, while Pancrace's Guy Mesger won the under 200 division, beating Cal State Bakersfield wrestler Tito Ortiz. WWF King of the Ring, June 8th, Providence Civic Center. Attendance 9,312. Live gate $202,963. Estimate buy rate / revenue, 0.50 / $1.59 million. Thumbs up / down / middle, 166.7%, 29, 19.3%, 21, 14.0%. Best match, Shawn Michaels vs. Steve Austin 118, Mankind vs. Hunter Hearst Helmsley 35. Worst match, Goldust vs. Crush 42, Legion of Doom and Psycho Sid vs. Owen Hart and Davey Boy Smith and Jim Neidhart 20. Highlights, Undertaker pinned Farouk in 1343 to retain the WWF title in a match better than it seemed on paper when distraction in the Nation of Domination caused Undertaker to use a tombstone to get the title, 2 1/4 stars. Shawn Michaels actually got louder cheers than Steve Austin in their double disqualification match at 22-29, 4 stars, while Hunter Hearst Helmsley captured the King of the Ring tournament that had been promised him 1 year earlier, beating Mankind in 1926 of the finals, 3 1/2 stars. WCW Great American Bash, June 15, Moline, Eel Mark of the Quad. Attendance, 9,613, 8,538 paid live gate, $142,118. Estimate buy rate / revenue, 0.60 / $1.88 million. Thumbs up / down / middle, 41, 30.8%, 52, 39.1%, 40, 30.1%. Best match, Ultimo Dragon vs. Psychosis 55, Diamond Dallas Page vs. Randy Savage 35. Worst match, Conan vs. Hugh Morris 44, Steve McMichael vs. Kevin Green 17. Highlights, Randy Savage pinned Diamond Dallas Page due to outside help from Scott Hall in a Wild Falls Count Anywhere Lights Out match main event in 1656, 3 3/4 stars. Kevin Nash and Scott Hall retained the WCW tag titles, beating Ric Flair and Roddy Piper when Flair was fighting with 6 backstage, leaving Piper by himself in 10:02, 2 1/4 stars. In yet another battle of football players, Kevin Green pinned Steve McMichael in 9:21, 2 stars. Green showed incredible potential as a wrestler, being able to work a match that good with McMichael, which most seasoned top stars were unable to do. In a women's title versus retirement match, Akira Hokuto beat Medusa in 11:41, 3 stars, and Medusa never has resurfaced in WCW despite still being under contract. WWF Canadian Stampede, July 6, Calgary Saddledome. Attendance, 12,151, 10,974 paid live gate, $229,598 Canadian. Estimate buy rate / revenue, 0.59 / $1.32 million. Thumbs up / down / middle, 256, 99.6%, 0.4%, 0.0%. Best match, Bret and Owen Hart and Jim Neidhart and Brian Pillman and Davey Boy Smith vs. Goldust and Legion of Doom and Steve Austin and Ken Shamrock 169, Great Sasuke vs. Taka Michinoku 42. Worst match, Godwins vs. Blackjacks pregame show, 74, Undertaker vs. Vader 45. Highlights, for a show that had little interest coming in and only 4 matches, it was arguably not only the best pay-per-view show of the year but the best in the history of the WWF. All 4 matches were good to excellent, with the Hart Foundation, Bret and Owen Hart and Davey Boy Smith and Brian Pillman and Jim Neidhart, as unbelievable babyfaces in Calgary despite being portrayed as heels on television, beating Steve Austin and Legion of Doom and Ken Shamrock and Goldust when Owen pinned Austin in 24-31, 4 1/4 stars. Undertaker retained the WWF title, pinning Vader in 12-39, 3 1/4 stars. In a match designed to set up Great Sasuke as the star of the WWF's light heavyweight division, it was Taka Michinoku, in doing the job, who got over and by the end of the year was the WWF's champion, 4 stars, and Mankind went to a double countout with Hunter Hearst Helmsley, 3 stars. WCW Bash at the Beach, July 13, Daytona Beach Ocean Center. Attendance, 7,851 sellout, 6,354 paid live gate, $150,870. Estimate buy rate / revenue, 0.89 / $2.79 million. Thumbs up / down / middle, 149, 71.6%, 29, 13.9%, 30, 14.4%. Best match, Hector Garza and Juventud Guerrera and Liz Mark Jr. vs. La Parca and Psicosis and Villano Cuatro 86, Ultimo Dragon vs. Chris Jericho 71. Worst match, Jeff Jarrett vs. Steve McMichael 57, Hulk Hogan and Dennis Rodman vs. Lex Luger and the Giant 36. Highlights: Lex Luger and the Giant beat Hulk Hogan and Dennis Rodman in 22-31. Luger beat Hogan with the torture rack submission to set up their singles feud later in the year. After the match, Luger racked Rodman, and also Randy Savage. While not a good wrestling match per se, it was far better than anyone had the right to expect considering the participants and had super heat, 1.5 star. In other top matches, Roddy Piper beat Ric Flair, 3.25 stars, in a surprisingly good match. Scott Hall and Randy Savage beat Diamond Dallas Page and debuting Curt Hennig in 9:35, 1/2 star. Jeff Jarrett kept the U.S. title beating Steve McMichael in 6:56. DUD, Chris Benoit beat Kevin Sullivan in a loser must retire match in 13:10, 3.5 stars. Rick and Scott Steiner earned a tag title shot beating Great Muta and Masahiro Chono in 11:37, 3.25 stars. Chris Jericho retained the WCW Cruiserweight title pinning Ultimo Dragon in 12:55, 4.25 stars, and a tremendous six-man saw Juventud Guerrera and Hector Garza and Lizmark Jr. beat La Parca and Psicosis and Villano Cuatro in 10:08, 4.25 stars. UFC Showdown, July 27, Birmingham, Jefferson County Civic Center. Attendance. Livegate. Estimate buy rate/revenue, 0.53/$850,000. Thumbs up/down/middle, 110, 90.9%, 5, 4.1%, 6, 5.0%. Best match, Mark Coleman vs. Maurice Smith 113. Worst match, Joe Moreira vs. Yuri Volin 49. Highlights in UFC's most memorable match of the year, Maurice Smith captured the heavyweight title beating Mark Coleman in what was something of a title unification match with Smith holding the strap of defunct EFC. Up to that point it had been a night for the wrestlers, with Kevin Jackson winning the under 200-pound tournament with ease, and Mark Kerr capturing the heavyweight tournament with little competition. WWF SummerSlam, August 3, East Rutherford Continental Airlines Arena. Attendance 20,213. Sellout 17,361. Paid live gate $523,514. Estimate buy rate/revenue 0. August $2.76 million. Thumbs up/down/middle 111, 45.3%, 107, 43.7%, 27, 11.0%. Best match, Bret Hart vs. Undertaker 99. Steve Austin vs. Owen Hart 57. Worst match, Los Boricuas vs. DOA 97, Legion of Doom vs. Godwins 37. Highlights: the injury to Steve Austin several minutes before the scheduled conclusion of an IC title match against Owen Hart, which Austin won at 16-16, took the luster away from one of the big shows of the year. 2.75 stars. In the main event, Bret Hart regained the WWF title from Undertaker when special ref Shawn Michaels hit Undertaker with a chair, thus turning heel, when Hart ducked in 28:09, 3 stars. In other key matches, Mankind beat Hunter Hearst Helmsley in a cage match in 16:25, 2.5 stars, and Davey Boy Smith retained the European title beating Ken Shamrock via DQ in 7:29, 1.75 stars. WCW Road Wild, August 9, Sturgis Outdoors. Attendance 6,500. Live gate, $0. Estimate buy rate/revenue, 0.65/$2.09 million. Thumbs up/down/middle, 8, 6.0%, 119, 88.8%, 7, 5.2%. Best match, Alex Wright vs. Chris Jericho 35, Steiners vs. Scott Hall and Kevin Nash 10. Worst match, Hulk Hogan vs. Lex Luger 27, Diamond Dallas Page vs. Curt Hennig 13. Highlights: Hulk Hogan, who had lost the WCW title to Lex Luger 6 days earlier, regained it due to Scott Hall as an imposter sting, hitting Luger with a baseball bat. Marcus Bagwell 6, Vincent and Kevin Nash all interfered as well in 16-15, 1/2 star. In a match that was originally to be a tag title change but the finish was changed at the 11th hour, Steiners beat Kevin Nash and Scott Hall via DQ in 15:29, 1.75 stars, while Giant pinned Randy Savage in 6:05, 1 star. Curt Hennig beat Diamond Dallas Page in 9:41, 3/4 of a star. Ric Flair pinned 6 in 11:06, 1 1/4 stars, and Alex Wright pinned Chris Jericho to keep the Cruiserweight title in 13:03, 3 stars. ECW Hardcore Heaven, August 17, Fort Lauderdale War Memorial Auditorium. Attendance 1,950, 1,650 paid live gate, $60,000. Estimate buy rate/revenue, 0.21/$325,000. Thumbs up/down/middle, 104, 42.3%, 137, 55.7%, 5, 2.0%. Best match, Shane Douglas vs. Terry Funk vs. Sabu 97, Al Snow vs. Rob Van Dam 37. Worst match, Bam Bam Bigelow vs. Spike Dudley 53, Tommy Dreamer vs. Jerry Lawler 34. Highlights in a night that for the most part didn't work, including one of the worst skits in recorded history where Sandman was drinking and driving an ambulance looking for the arena. Shane Douglas won a three-way dance over ECW champion Sabu and Terry Funk by pinning Funk in 26:37, 3 1/2 stars. In an interpromotional match, Tommy Dreamer pinned Jerry Lawler in 18:57 with outside interference from Jake Roberts and Sonny among others, 1/2 of 1 star, and the Dudleys retained the ECW tag titles beating PG-13 in 10:58, 2 stars. WWF Ground Zero, September 7, Louisville Gardens. Attendance 4,963. Sellout. Live gate $82,228. Estimate buy rate/revenue 0.45/$1.58 million. Thumbs up/down/middle 62, 42.2%, 39, 26.5%, 46, 31.3%. Best match, Shawn Michaels vs. Undertaker 73, Bret Hart vs. Patriot 32. Worst match, Farouk vs. Crush vs. Savio Vega 84, Four Corners Tag Title Match 29. Highlights, Undertaker and Shawn Michaels battled to a no contest in 16:03, although with the pre-match brawl it went closer to 23 minutes. In the main event, 3 3/4 stars of a fairly forgettable show. Bret Hart retained the WWF title via submission over the Patriot with a sharpshooter in 1920, 3 1/4 stars, and Headbangers won the WWF tag titles in a Four Corners match over Owen Hart and Davey Boy Smith. Godwins and Legion of Doom in an awful match, DUD. WCW Fall Brawl, September 14, Winston-Salem Lawrence Joel Coliseum. Attendance 11,939. Sellout 11,024. Paid live gate $213,330. Estimate buy rate/revenue 0.53/$1.74 million. Thumbs up/down/middle 68, 68.0%, 20, 20.0%, 12, 12.0%. Best match, Eddie Guerrero vs. Chris Jericho 41, Alex Wright vs. Ultimo Dragon 23. Worst match, Giant vs. Scott Norton 30, War Games 22. Highlights, Team NWO of Marcus Bagwell and Kevin Nash and Six and Conan beat Team Horsemen of Ric Flair and Chris Benoit and Steve McMichael, who were to team with Kurt Hennig, who did basically the same injury angle he did 1 year earlier in WWF with Hunter Hearst Helmsley to screw Mark Marrow, and ended up turning on Flair and the Horsemen, causing them to lose the War Games in 1937, 2 1/2 stars. The second half of the show was so-so, but the first half was tremendous. Lex Luger and Diamond Dallas Page beat Scott Hall and Randy Savage when Larry Zbyszko countered as Luger pinned Hall in 10:19, 2 stars. Giant pinned Scott Norton with a choke slam in 5:27, 1 star. Alex Wright kept the TV title pinning Ultimo Dragon in 1843, 3 1/2 stars, and Eddie Guerrero kept the Cruiserweight title beating Chris Jericho in 17:19, 3 3/4 stars. WWF Bad Blood, October 5, St. Louis Kiel Center. Attendance 21,151. Sellout 17,404. Paid live gate $212,550. Estimate buy rate/revenue 0.June $2.11 million. Thumbs up/down/middle 72, 49.7%, 34, 23.4%, 39, 26.9%. Best match, Shawn Michaels vs. Undertaker 119. Worst match, Los Boricuas vs. DOA 39, Headbangers vs. Godwins 31. Highlights: under the cloud of Brian Pillman's death a few hours earlier, WWF went on with the show with few highlights aside from arguably the greatest cage match in history where Shawn Michaels beat Undertaker in 29:59 due to interference from Kane to earn the next WWF title shot. 5 stars and a ceremony honoring former NWA champions like the Funks, Harley Race, Jack Briscoe, Gene Kiniski and Lou Thesz, along with longtime St. Louis promoter Sam Mushnick. Bret Hart and Davey Boy Smith beat what was advertised as a flag match, but the rules changed at the last minute to be a regular match over Vader and Patriot in 23-13. Owen Hart won the vacant IC title in the tourney finals from Farouk in 7-12, and Godwins won the tag titles from Headbangers in 12-17, all of which were subdued at best performances. IWF presents The Contenders, October 11th, Sioux City. Attendance 250. Live gate. Estimate buy rate / revenue 0.03 $72,000. Thumbs up / down / middle 11, 14.1%, 56, 71.8%, 11, 14.1%. Best match: Frank Shamrock vs. Dan Henderson 37, Tom Erickson vs. Tsuyoshi Kikuchi 13. Worst match: Townsend Saunders vs. Andre Pedernarias 17, Dennis Hall vs. Joao Roque 9. Highlights: in a show which featured a tremendous caliber of athletes but a poor concept, John Peretti attempted to get stars of NHB through the pay-per-view censors that were destroying NHB by doing a submissions-only show between wrestlers and submission experts. The scoring rules were never explained. The matches, featuring no strikes and lots of defensive moves, were generally boring. Most of the wrestlers had trouble with the submission fights guards. The wrestling contingent was furious because the wrestlers, without the ability to strike and headbutt from the top, couldn't do much due to lack of submission skill. The jiu-jitsu contingent was furious because they thought the rules favored the wrestlers when it came to point systems. Nobody bought the show. And a few days later, this group was defunct. The star of the show was Frank Shamrock, who made 2-time Olympic wrestler Dan Henderson submit in just 56 seconds to an ankle lock. Kenny Monday, one of the great wrestlers of his era, lost to an ankle lock in just 45 seconds against Matt Hume. Tom Erickson, America's best freestyle heavyweight, won via decision against Ring's Tsuyoshi Kikuchi. UFC Collision Course, October 17th, Bay St. Louis Casino Magic. Attendance 1,500. Sellout. Live gate. Estimate buy rate / revenue 0.May $708,000. Thumbs up / down / middle 139, 96.5% to 1.4%, 3, 2.1%. Best match: Vitor Belfort vs. Randy Couture 64, Carlau Barreto vs. Dave Beneteau 50. Worst match: Mark Kerr vs. Gregory Stott 24, Mark Kerr vs. Dwayne Cason 23. Highlights: Randy Couture derailed Vitor Belfort in an upset in 8-17 as the biggest story of one of the best UFC shows in history. In the main event, Maurice Smith made late out-of-shape replacement Tank Abbott quit due to leg kicks in 8-11, while Mark Kerr went to 7-0 in easily winning his second straight heavyweight tournament. UFC would end up losing Kerr due to legal problems after this show. The show also featured one of the closest and best UFC matches in history, with David Beneteau upsetting Carlau Barreto via decision after 15 minutes. WCW Halloween Havoc, October 26, Las Vegas MGM Grand Garden Arena. Attendance 12,457. Sellout 10,138. Paid live gate $297,508. Estimate buy rate / revenue 1.1 / $3.62 million. Thumbs up / down / middle 90, 43.5%, 82, 39.6%, 35, 16.9%. Best match: Rey Mysterio Jr. vs. Eddie Guerrero 183, Randy Savage vs. Diamond Dallas Page 7. Worst match: Hulk Hogan vs. Roddy Piper 83, Alex Wright vs. Steve McMichael 37. Highlights: this show will best be remembered for the third match on the show, where Rey Mysterio Jr. won the Cruiserweight title from Eddie Guerrero in a match where he was originally scheduled to lose his mask in 13:51, 4 3/4 stars. Otherwise, it was a lackluster show headed up by a main event that'll forever be known as the Age in the Cage match, where Roddy Piper won a poor non-title match over Hulk Hogan in 13:37 EUD. Randy Savage beat Diamond Dallas Page when Hogan, dressed as Sting, interfered in 18:07, 3 1/4 stars. Lex Luger beat Scott Hall in 13:02 with Larry Zbyszko as ref, 3/4 of a star. Curt Hennig beat Ric Flair via DQ in 13:57, 1 3/4 stars. WWF Survivor Series, November 9, Montreal Molson Center. Attendance, 20,593 sellout, 18,101 paid live gate, $447,284 Canadian. Estimate buy rate/revenue, 0.89/$3.14 million. Thumbs up/down/middle, 81, 35.8%, 87, 38.5%, 58, 25.7% best match. Bret Hart vs. Shawn Michaels 147, Kane vs. Mankind 23. Worst match, Truth Commission vs. DOA 77, Jesse Jam and Billy Gunn and Godwins vs. Headbangers and Blackjacks 55. Highlights, Shawn Michaels defeated Bret Hart to win the WWF title in 12:11 of the famous double-cross finish in the historical climax of the show when Vince McMahon ordered ref Earl Hebner, a longtime close friend of Hart's, to call for the bell and rule it a submission without Hart's knowledge some 5 minutes before the match was scheduled to end. With Hart actually reversing the hold as the bell was called, a large percentage of fans watching realized it was all screwed up, 3 3/4 stars. That finish took all the attention away from the show, which included Steve Austin regaining the IC title from Owen Hart in 4:04 in a match well below par because both men were wrestling injured, 1 star, topping off a series of elimination tag team matches. WCW World War III, November 23, Auburn Hills The Palace. Attendance 17,128, 15,735 paid live gate, $395,831. Estimate buy rate/revenue, 0.56/$1.84 million. Thumbs up/down/middle, 27, 21.1%, 87, 68.0%, 14. 10.9% best match, Eddie Guerrero vs. Rey Mysterio Jr. 77, Ric Flair vs. Curt Hennig 13. Worst match, Battle Royal 40, Alex Wright vs. Steve McMichael 38. Highlights, another poor show headlined by the annual 3-ring 60-man Battle Royal won by Scott Hall in 29:48. It was noteworthy as Battle Royal rules were changed from over-the-top eliminations to simply rolling someone under the ropes would be an elimination, 1/2 of 1 star, and for Hulk Hogan, who arrived unadvertised, and Kevin Nash, dressed as Sting, the highest paid performers on the show, both coming out only for the finish. Curt Hennig retained the U.S. title pinning Ric Flair in 17:57, 2.5 stars. Eddie Guerrero retained the Cruiserweight title pinning Rey Mysterio Jr. in 12:42, 4 stars. Steiners retained the WCW tag titles beating Steven Regal and David Taylor in 9:45 when Rick pinned Regal after a sky-high bulldog, 2 stars. And Perry Saturn pinned Disco Inferno to retain the TV title in 8:19, 1/4 of 1 star. ECW November to Remember, November 30, Monaco Golden Dome. Attendance 4,634 sellout, 4,218 paid live gate, $103,900. Estimate buy rate/revenue, 0.20/$400,000. Thumbs up/down/middle, 71, 36.2%, 102, 52.0%, 23, 11.7% best match, Chris Condito and Lance Storm vs. Jerry Lynn and Tommy Rogers 36, Sabu vs. Sandman 32. Worst match, Sabu vs. Sandman 88, Taz vs. Pitbull number 232. Highlights, while ECW couldn't live up to its expectations and hype from previous years when it came to putting on better shows than its much larger opposition, this show clearly established them as a pay-per-view promotion for the long haul as they maintained their buy rate after a disastrous second show. Shane Douglas, in his hometown, regained the ECW title from Bam Bam Bigelow in 25:02 of a so-so match, 1 3/4 stars. Sabu pinned Sandman in 20:55 of a tables and ladders legal match that was among the worst matches of the decade, -3.5 stars. Tommy Dreamer went to a non-decision against Rob Van Dam in 16:02, 2 3/4 stars. Tracy Smothers and Little Guido retained the ECW tag titles in a 4 corners match beating the Dudleys, Axl Rotten and Balls Mahoney and the Gangstonators, 1 1/2 star, while Taz beat Pitbull number 2 in 129 to retain the TV title, 1/2 of 1 star. WWF Generation X, Springfield Civic Center. Attendance 6,358, sellout. Live gate $112,864. Estimate buy rate / revenue 0.40 / $1.51 million. Thumbs up / down / middle 22, 17.2%, 96, 75.0% and 7.8%. Best match, Taka Michinoku vs. Brian Christopher 83, Shawn Michaels vs. Ken Shamrock 26. Worst match, Sergeant Slaughter vs. Hunter Hearst Helmsley 60, Mark Marrow vs. Butterbean 44. Highlights, D-Generation X, in the spirit of the NWO, the concept was a knockoff of, delivered its own poor show loaded with run-in DQ finishes and poor matches. In the main event, Shawn Michaels retained the WWF title, losing via run-in DQ to Ken Shamrock in 1829, 3 stars. In a match he was asked and refused to drop the title in, Steve Austin retained the IC title, which he voluntarily vacated the next night, by pinning Rocky Maivia in 5-12, 2 1/4 stars. In another of the series of worst matches of the year, Hunter Hearst Helmsley beat Sergeant